Everybody knows I'm moaning. I'm alone and crying the blues. It's just church and blues just perfectly blended.
Welcome to your
The White
Liberation
Republic,
Library.
Race,
Dive
Religion, and American Nationalism.
Ishmael Wade here with
Hello, everyone. This is Carl McRoy with Your Liberation Library. I've been on hiatus for a while. Some people have been asking, when are you going to come back? What's going to be your next show? So one of the reasons I just got to give you an update. Back over here, this is what I was working on for a while, just trying to become a better writer. So finished up in May a master's of theopoetics in writing. So I guess I could start writing again now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And everyone, we have a couple of special guests, they're not just special. They're not just special because we all have the same hairstylist. These gentlemen, these are some good brothers here. We got Dr. Philip Wesley, which many of you message readers, you are familiar with the column, the Elevation column, where he brings inspirational insights from music and literature. And we also have Dr. Robert Nelson, and this whole thing is really going to be a feature about what's going on with his life and calling in music.
Yeah, so I'm a contributor to the column Elevation Media that takes you higher for Message Magazine. So we here repping Message Magazine here, and minister at the United in Christ Seventh-day Adventist Church in Baltimore, Maryland. So great opportunity to be a part of this podcast here.
Yes.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Robert Nelson. I'm a cultural strategist. I just recently served as executive director, CEO, and president of National Blues Museum in St. Louis. Work as a consultant for the organization, as well as a consultant for up-and-coming organizations that we're forming throughout Feugerson and Delwood and St. Louis abroad. Work closely with with the Blues Foundation that is in Memphis, Tennessee. And we work nationally with a network of cultural organizations, primarily devoted to jazz and blues music. Currently just working on so many projects. I'm sure that we'll get to it, but I'm so excited to be here with these gentlemen. And I've been waiting for this opportunity for more than a year, and we're here. So thank you guys for having me.
I was reminded that it's been a year since we met when you showed me the flyer for your upcoming event. And we got to make sure we just go ahead and mention that right away. And I believe, yes, there's the flyer, Jazz in the Sanctuary. So now, last year when I met you in St. Louis, it was at the National Blues Museum. Me and a friend were touring through there. Excellent exhibits there. Some rare artifacts, some nice artwork. And then we come to the gift shop, and that is where I meet Dr. Nelson. And, he's the director, but I don't know that he's the doctor or the director. He's just the guy in the gift shop at the register with his cap on, and he's just looking studious and just, hey, is there anything I can help you with? And showing us around the gift shop, and just everything's low key, right? And then he invites me to this event, and the Jazz in the Sanctuary. I was like, let me check. And I looked, and I moved something around. I made an arrangement for a ride to be there. And it was like Clark Kent and Superman. I got Clark Kent in the gift shop. When this brother took the platform, that was Superman up there. Talk to us about how that developed. Jazz in the Sanctuary.
First, before I get into how that brainchild happened, I appreciate that introduction. when just listening to you say that, it was very moving for me. I think about, it makes me think about Christ, you know, for you to say that you were in the presence of someone and you didn't know that they were a doctor, that you didn't know that they were the CEO and the president of the organization, that this was just a person who was just helping you find books. That really moves me, because that's that's who we're taught to be. We don't have to walk around with our titles and some sense of superiority or any self-serving. I'm there to serve the people. And so I don't have to act like what people think a CEO and president would act like. My business, I knew that the Adventist, that the conference or the convention was in town, and I wanted to interact with the people. I wanted to be a welcoming face. I wanted to shake hands and welcome you guys into the National Blues Museum. And I wanted to help you guys find books and make sure that you guys were enjoying yourselves and having a great time. And it also moves me to say that once we get to Jazz in the Sanctuary, when I come out, you said that it was Superman. I think that represents the power of spirit. You know, God calls just ordinary people with a hat, a baseball cap on their head. And when his power is moving in us, then we become superhuman. We become who he has called us to be, which is more than what people see and how they think that we are created, who they think that we are. And I think the Bible talks about how we're to entertain strangers because we don't know who they are. And on that day, I met a brother in you. You yourself, I knew that you were someone very, very, very special. And I knew that it was incumbent upon me and for our team to make sure that we gave you a very special treatment while you were in the gift shop at the museum. I didn't know that I would have a lifelong brother. I had no expectations of what would come from just simply serving you in the space. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you so much for that. And I'm moved by that, the way you kind of observed that. So thank you so much. Jazz in the Sanctuary, how did that come about? Wow, that's a long time coming. I'll kind of share it briefly with you. You know, I was born and raised in the church. My feet, I was sitting on the bench and my feet, they didn't hit the floor. And, you know, the church back then, this was an old Baptist church, and they would sing hymns and Dr. Watts hymns, and the entire congregation would be in sync, singing music. And I was very young, and I thought to myself, wow, this God that everyone is singing to, I want to sing to this God. And this spirit that I feel, I want to feel it more intensely, because I thought I was so young that maybe older people felt it more because they had more experience and maybe what I was feeling. And I did feel the spirit. I thought, wow, when I get older, I'm going to feel it more intense. And so, you know, little kids only get so much, I thought. Man, was I wrong, you know? And so growing up in the church, being in preschool, being mentored by the legendary Dr. Shirley LaFleur, who is a renowned poetess and a writer and a theater. She was working on her master's, and congratulations on your master's. And she was a preschool teacher, and she was putting herself through school in the late 60s. And she was my preschool teacher, and she had everything that she was learning. She taught it to me. So she had me up on the box at the podium with the microphone, chin up, articulation, intonation, diction. I was getting those lessons early on. And then in the church, music lessons at 7 and 8. And so I come from a family that they were preparing. I was being prepared at a very early age, but it was Motown. You know, when, you know, on the weekends, my dad was listening to blues music, and we were listening to the Supremes and the Temptations and Bill Withers. So I come from a very, very rich family and culture and arts and music and books. And so there was really no demarcation in our family that said, you only have to listen to Mahalia. You could only listen to what was the group out of Oakland, the Hawkins.
Hawkins.
Yeah. We listened to the Hawkins, and we also listened to the Supremes. And we listened to Nina Simone. And so, it was Bible, it was the Bible, and it was Motown. You had to know the books of the Bible, and you had to be able to list all of the members of the Temptations. And so that kind of cultural experience for a young person, it let me know that culture is enriching and music is healing. I think that I was as moved by Bill Withers' Grandma's Hands, that song, as much as I was moved by Precious Lord, Take My Hand. Precious Lord was a song that was sung at our family's funeral. So those were tunes that moved me. But Grandma's Hands was something that we played in the house, and we talked to our families about it, and we had connection with family. And so as a musician today, I don't see music so much as categorized as much as I know that it's important for us to focus on the music that brings life and healing and spirit. And so Jazz in the Sanctuary for me is a recognition of that culture. I don't hide that I'm a believer. I don't hide that, but I also don't hide that I'm a jazz singer. I'm a singer and a songwriter. And we write music that's similar to Grandma's Hands, stories about my family, stories about my mother and father, their relationship, and how watching them love and watching them fight, how that has shaped how we move through our relationships. And so I see music as a part of that quilt of our cultural experience, particularly in the Black community. Those pieces, they come together and they build a quilt that is representative of the entire experience. We're more than human beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and in that experience, you're going to have the blues and you're going to fall in love and you're going to hurt. And sometimes you don't have words. And so sometimes you're going to scat like the jazz greats do, because you don't even know what to say, but there's something in your heart. And so Jazz in the Sanctuary for me it's bringing that quilt together, stitching those pieces together. There's healing in the chords of music. Jazz music can get so intricate and it gets so beautiful that sometimes, there can be a riff, from a guitar, a bass, or a key, or a scat, or a phrase that you may not even know what the person said, but it strikes a chord within us and it connects us. And so Jazz in the Sanctuary is primarily a brainchild that is intended to bring communities together around culture, around our shared stories. Jazz and blues and gospel music are all the foundation of all American music. And that's one of the things that we taught at National Blues Museum. I think our story was that blues is the foundation for all American music. But one thing I like to say is that actually gospel, Negro spirituals particularly, when Africans came on this land, they were brought to this land, forced to sing in a language that was not their native tongue. We got this beautiful thing that we call that's considered broken English. And it is the Negro spiritual. And my God, what a gift that is to America, that was born out of hardship. And from those Negro spirituals comes the blues. And that's where blues is birthed out of Negro spirituals. And then from there, we get jazz. And so I see the lineage, and I respect the lineage of Negro spirituals and what our ancestors, what they endured and how they turned that into an enriched cultural experience that the world today still can't get enough of. It still can't get enough, but there's healing in that music. And so the preservation of Negro spirituals, blues music, jazz music is something that that resonates with me. My commitment to the preservation of that cultural art is apparent in not only the work that I do, but it's also apparent in the songs that I sing. And so I'm finding every opportunity to share, whether it's through books, whether it's through writing, poetry, conversations, preserving our stories and not allowing anyone to erase our stories, our history, preserving that, and then performing the music, writing the music, covering the music. That's a commitment. And so Jazz in the Sanctuary is an opportunity for people in the community to come together under that umbrella of our cultural experience. And this is a free event. The community actually pays for this so that members of our community, whether they're seniors, whether they're young people, whoever they are welcome to come at no cost. Look at that, at no cost. And we start this event with a community conversation. And the community conversation is jazz, blues, and the church. And there's so much to talk about there, how they are connected and how over the years we've tried to separate them. And there's been a big debate, in recent years. I mean, when you go back, blues singers were kicked out of church, and jazz is not a nice word. If you do some reading, Nina Simone says, I refuse the word jazz. She said that is a word that is used to denigrate this cultural experience that this music that we created. She says, I'm not a jazz singer, she says. She says, I am, this is classical music. That's what Nina Simone said. And so jazz is a word that was actually used to demonize the music. And so people were kicked out of churches and they found out you were playing at the blues club, you were considered a bad person,
Yes.
And so this is an opportunity for us to kind of have those conversations, to look from whence we've come and how we are evolving as spiritual beings within our community and how we are able to celebrate our culture and celebrate the people. Many of the same blues artists that were singing in those juke joints were the same ones on Sunday mornings that were bringing the spirit into those places, and people were shouting. And then on the weekends, they had the blues, and they might have a drink or whatever they did. It was all part of the story. And so our shared stories are so important, as particularly when we refuse to add judgment to those stories, because the judgment that we use, we can sit back and go, I felt like that too, and now we must find better ways and healthier ways to respond to some of our experience. And we do that through our shared stories.
That's good.
So, I just want to interject here as you're talking about the stories. When we look at the Bible, there's a whole book based on relationships that we barely read in church. It's almost like a taboo to read the Song of Solomon in church, right? But it's in the Bible. It's love songs. And there's a whole book in the Bible based on love songs. And also, when you say scat, then you look at the Psalms, right? And it's almost like David is doing a scat when he says Selah. Like, we don't even have a definition for the word. Oh, it's a transition. It's something, but it's what he felt. It's how he communicated his song. And so we're no different today. We sing songs about relationships. Proverbs and Ecclesiastes was about wisdom. And even the book of Esther didn't mention the name of God, but God was all in the book. And so we have to interpret the music as such. And a lot of people bring judgment on, well, this is the style of music, it's where it is. But, when the harps and the strings were playing for Nebuchadnezzar's statue, they weren't condemned for the style of music, because it was the same strings that David would use to praise God that they used to praise the statue. So again, it wasn't style, it was more intent on what the music is. So what you're bringing here is something that has been biblical, but we have categorized it as something demonic.
You know, I think about Jonah in the whale and on his way to, is it Nineveh?
Nineveh.
Or Tarshish? Nineveh. You know,
well, he's supposed to go to
have,
Nineveh, but he decided, hey, I want to go to Tarshish instead.
Exactly. And, you know, we all have had, and some of us are still having that experience of kind of diverting our path from the path that is given us for whatever reason. But I think those experiences that we have, I think that's part of our story. And I think that God gets the glory in that. And so I think it's important that we share stories without judgment, because there's a story there, and it serves the entire ecosystem, because we learn from each other's mistakes. We learn from each other's pains, and we also, and joy is infectious. And so when you share your accomplishments and your joys, it's like, whoa, that's possible. And then we ask, is that possible for me? So I think that sharing our stories is so important, particularly when we choose and we're intentional about refraining from so much judgment. I think there's so much for us to learn in each other's stories. And that's what this is all about. Building strong community gives us an opportunity to share our stories. And then our shared stories and how we learn from each other is what builds a stronger community. And that comes through song, that comes through biblical teachings, that comes through our writing and different books that we share with each other, and thought and conversation. And we don't always agree, but we're on a journey, and we grow and we evolve.
You know, there was something I was talking to Philip about yesterday, and that's the notion that I've been working with in the last couple of years of, you know, we have lots of literature about music. All right. You know, just look around in the background. We got the Spirituals and the Blues by James Cone, where he's kind of tackling that issue that you're talking about, right? You know, these separate spheres, but talking about the same issues just from different angles and so forth. But so there's literature about music, but I've been thinking about music as literature. You know, there's a lot of literature throughout our history of oral tradition in this country, which, you know, wasn't always a chosen oral history. We had state-sanctioned illiteracy. You know, it was against the law to read and to teach someone else to read, you know, during the antebellum days, during slavery. But thinking about all of the oral, the sermons, the speeches, the songs, thinking about that body of work as literature, you know, there is so much there. I appreciate your emphasis on preservation. I like what you were talking about with quilt work. I want to bring this back to the venue that you're having Jazz in the Sanctuary. This is one of those churches that has the stained glass. So let's jump from the quilt metaphor to the stained glass, because I think it also symbolizes what you're talking about. You have all these different panes of glass with different colors in them, and then when you add the theatrical lights that they have in that church, it is amazing. So it's an amazing setting. But it does bring together all these different elements. Visually, it brings together the sonic elements that you go into even after you have the community conversation. So let's see, since I was there last year, there's two things that I want to ask you about. Because the event is coming when? August 1, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And the time is going to be, well, tell us the timetable again. We got the flyer up.
Yes.
And it starts at?
It actually started, the community conversation will start at 6:15. Edie B. Anderson, she has a jazz radio show and she'll be hosting this year. She and Linda Pritchard is also with a few publications here in the region. And they will lead, Edie will host this event, and Linda will actually lead our conversation with a panelist of a few professors from UMSL and jazz aficionados and leaders in the community. I wanted to say one thing before I got too far. When you talked about the stained glass, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and you talked about the ambiance, you know, and the lighting and the stained glass. You know, when I went to visit the church and we were putting when the brainchild was happening, and I walked through the church and I saw the stained glass windows, it immediately came. I said, "Jazz in the Sanctuary." I said, "Where blues and jazz meets stained glass." It came to me, and I thought, this place is beautiful, and the light that comes through these. And I said, "I want candles." I said, "Let's get flameless candles." And so we flood the sanctuary with flameless candles, and the light that comes through, and then the glow and the golden glow. So it's kind of like symbolic of bringing the spirit, you know, the spirit, bringing the spirit there through light, through prisms, and the prisms of the different colors of light that represents who we are, and it represents the different aspects of who we are. We aren't all just one thing, you know. And when light comes into our lives, when light comes into our situation, then the reflection is a piece of art itself. So being in the sanctuary where blues and jazz meet stained glass, and having the candles that itself, you're already ready for an experience. You're ready for a worship experience. And I think that you know, we're clear what worship is, but even when we're not doing what is traditionally considered to be worship music, the experience and the community and the quietness and the focus on oneself is a form of worship. And it's a form of worship in that we allow ourselves to be open, we allow ourselves to hear the message, and we allow ourselves to be present. You can't worship if you're not present. And it brings us into presence, first with ourselves, and then open to the spirit. And so I appreciate you bringing in that this is a place where blues and jazz meet stained glass. The other side of that, Carl, was
the conversation, you know, the different panelists that you have on there.
Yes. So
and then I want to ask you before we go after this, I want to ask you about one particular piece that you performed. And
okay,
but I'm not going to say which one that is yet.
I want to know which one it is. So the conversation is really, it's like, you know, we bring in professors from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. We bring it, and as we take this to different spaces, and, you know, our goal is to share this experience, not just in St. Louis, but to share this in Kansas City, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Dallas, any place that will allow us to share this experience with them. We wish to utilize the cultural leaders from that region, from that city, from their universities, and to bring that thought and that conversation to the community. And the community is invited to be a part of the conversation. And so I think that's a cultural and a community building and strengthening exercise, if you will. You want to ask about a song. And then following the cultural conversation, the community culture conversation, that is, then Superman goes in and he changes from Clark Kent, and he comes out and he brings in an excellent Black excellence in jazz and in blues and in conversation, and just sets the tone and just walk us through this sonic cultural experience that pairs with the conversation. It pairs within the confines of the church, but it also connects us outside of the church in terms of community. And so I think I like to think that it's very well done. I think it's the vision that I have for it and that I received for it. I think that we're executing that. I like to think that we're really have our finger on the pulse of what God is saying for us to do with this, because we are in a certain sanctuary. We have to be very, very careful what we're doing. We have to be very, very careful songs that we choose and how we do that. We do drop a little bit into the Song of Solomon. You know, we do drop into some of the psalm, you know, but we also, there's also a song that also kind of speaks to some of the political climate and how as a community, because we're strengthening our voices. And so the songs have been carefully curated. Now, which one is it that's got your...
One more thing before I get to that, because I got to have something to tease this with as we get ready to close out. But so now you mentioned the skill and everything, the panelists, but do you want to take a moment, because you do it live, you know, you take a moment and celebrate each one of the musicians. You want to say something about your band, because they are awesome. They are excellent.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. You know, someone told me the other day, they said, you talk a lot about the panel discussion. You talk a lot about those. They said, but that band, we have world-class musicians who have traveled the globe on this show. And we really would love to showcase these musicians in different spaces. On drums, we have a young man who's actually played at the Montreux Jazz Festival. His name is Freddie Spencer. And there are no words. I told him one day, we were performing in Illinois together. And I said, Freddie, I said, we were talking about another project. He says, hey, I'm available. I want to be a part of that. I said, Freddie, I won't do it if you can't be there. So Freddie Spencer is an incredible jazz musician who has played on Montreux Jazz Festival. He's fascinating. Also, our bassist, they call him the Pharaoh of Funk, F-U-N-K. And he is an amazing a jazz bassist. He brings some heat to this concert, and his name is John King. He's also one of my mentors. When I started performing and put together the band, he was with me more than 10 years ago, and he has guided me, and he has watched me, and he has pulled my coattail, and he has put up his dukes for me if he thought anybody was trying to play any games with me. He's been a great protector, and he has music out of his very own. And so he's a star in his own right. This is an all-star band. On guitar, oh my God, is a young man by the name of Eric Slaughter. Eric has played all over. He has played all over the country. A lot of people like to liken him to, oh God, Wes Montgomery.
Okay.
A lot of people like to liken him to a modern Wes Montgomery. It's almost jaw-dropping to hear his sound and how he has modernized that kind of guitar playing. It's so it's spirited. And then my music director is a pianist. This young man, during that time, he had just finished college, and he has been studying all of his life. I see him as a young, modern Duke Ellington. His name is Antonio Foster. I'm so excited to have him as my music director. And he and I are actually, he's working with me. He's producing a project for me. We're working on a jazz project together. So he's written some wonderful arrangements. And I've written lyrics to some of those songs, and we're in the process of recording them as we speak. So it's Freddie Spencer on drums, John King on bass, Eric Slaughter on guitar, and Antonio Foster on keys.
All right. Yeah, so now for the reveal, that song. I think if I remind you of how you set it up. So you went biblical for a minute. You went biblical, and you were talking about after Jesus been to the cross, and He's resurrected, and he's getting ready to leave.
Wow, you got me on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
If you want,
talk to us about how you brought that into the show, and I set it up briefly. Talk to us about that, because I have not thought about that song the same ever since. And one of the things that I'm surprised at is that this song actually hasn't been adopted by a gospel artist after you framed this thing. So go ahead.
I appreciate that, Roy. You know, you're something else. You're very observant. I want to share with you, the name of the song is If You Want Me to Stay. And it was written by Sly Stone. And when we put together the set, I mean, we had beautiful tunes. We opened up with this jazz number called Summer Sun, and it's all about positivity, and it's all about turning all your dark days into light. You know, it's just beautiful and gorgeous. We go from there to the standard moaning. Everybody knows I'm moaning. I'm alone and crying the blues. You know, it's just church and blues just perfectly blended. And so those are the kinds of songs that people would expect in a jazz and blues in the Sanctuary. And then we do Gregory Porter's Take Me to the Alley.
Oh,
that's a
centerpiece song right there.
That's mine too. That's a centerpiece of this concert. That's the song that we set up, and we talked about the big storms that we had just recently had in St. Louis, where St. Louis had been devastated by storms, and how I had watched communities come together and rebuild with very little resources. We weren't, the Red Cross wasn't here, and FEMA, all of those people didn't show up. It was just everyday people calling and saying, hey, I've got a truck and I've got a football team. I've got 8 of the guys. If you guys need us to move bricks so you guys can get into your home, we're on the way. And so people work together. And so we framed that and set that up, and we did Take Me to the Alley, how important it is, how Christ has really modeled for us to go and to help those that are in need. So that's the centerpiece song. And so those were obvious song selections for this concert. And so Antonio and I, we sat, and I thought, dude, you know, we got to have some fun. You know, like we need something to make it funky. You know, this is not church service. This isn't a church service. This is a cultural experience. And so while we want to touch on those things and reflect, we also want to have some fun. And so we said, what about If You Want Me to Stay? And I said, dude, they're going to put me out of the church. So I said, I'm not gonna get kicked out of the Sanctuary. So I looked at the lyric and I meditated on it. I just thought about it. I love the song. It starts the arrangement that we use. It starts with gospel piano. We don't just start. It starts with a gospel piano, and so you don't know what we're about to play. He's just playing the gospel chords and all of that, and then John brings in the bass. And then the people are like, "What is really happening?" But when I think about it, I thought about Christ, and I thought about, you know, we think of the Bible as being archaic and old-fashioned, but the reality is that Christ was very modern. He was very contemporary, so contemporary that they didn't even like him. They were like, what are you talking about? Like, dude, this dude is not traditional. He's too forward-thinking. He's too progressive, very, very progressive. And I could just imagine when Mary and all of them, you know, they wanted him to stay. He says, no, I have to go. I can't, I have work to do. And I thought about it. I said, if you want me to stay, you know, people, I thought they wanted him to stay, but he couldn't stay. So I started to find some parallels in this funky tune. And I thought about Sly Stone himself. I thought about the subject. I thought about, here is a composer, here's a writer and a producer who in the 60s thought, I'm here to make music. and I'm here to make music for everybody. So he would have the, he would have the white girls with the tambourines and singing next to the sisters with the turbans, and the white cats would be on the drums, and the brothers would have their afros and they would be on the bass. And so just visually through his music, he was bringing people together. He was building a very strong community visually and sonically. And I thought, I think I'm on the right page here. I thought, we're talking about building communities. This isn't about Black. This isn't about white. This is about us becoming on one accord and what we can do when we become on one accord. And so I was of all the songs that was on the set, that was the one that I was a little shaky about. And I wasn't sure how people would receive it. I think they received that with open arms, and it was amazing. And I just kind of told the story, I said, I imagine, Christ being real hip, and them telling him, we want you to stay, Father, don't go, and he was like, no, baby, if you want me to stay, I've got to do this. And so, and when I sing it, I intentionally sing it from a place from my gospel training. So I'm not going to say that I sing it as a gospel song, but I would definitely say that I sing it with as much soul as I can muster, because I sing it from the heart, and that's what I'm thinking. So I love that, and I'm so glad that you said that. And I'm going to let Antonio know that you said that. I'm going to say, don't touch that, because he's looking at the set list. He's like, do you want to change? Do you want to put something from the project on the, on the set? And I'm like, yeah, we should. But every time we look, we like, I don't want to lose that. We can't, no, that's got to stay. That we can't take that out of the, and so we have so many incredible compositions to share in Jazz in the Same Sanctuary with so many people. And it's hard to take anything away. It's difficult to add. We can add, but it's hard to take anything away. But I'm so happy to hear that you enjoyed that. It's one of my favorites.
Well, we want to know, when is it coming to DC? That's what we want to know.
Or wait a minute, Baltimore. You need them in Baltimore, don't you?
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Baltimore. I love.
Phil. Huh? I'm asking Phil. You got some stained glass over there at your church in Baltimore?
Absolutely.
Whenever you have us, we would be happy to come. Also to DC and Baltimore. We also have other musicians in that region. So depending on how we do this show, if we need to be very, very budget conscious, we have musicians that are there that we can share the set list and the sheet music, and we can collaborate, and I can travel there with a smaller team, and we can do this. And our goal is to bring this to Baltimore. I love Baltimore. I love the food and the people of Baltimore. I love DC. I think I sat in some bookstore restaurant called Langston Hughes, something where you just get books and you sit there and you eat little sandwiches and you read books. And so I think, and going to the Smithsonian and just kind of meeting with my friends. And so we'd love to bring the show. All you have to do is call us. And as Nick Ashford wrote, if you need me, call me. No matter where you are, no matter how far, just call my name. I'll be there to hurry. He said, on that you can depend and never worry. And so we're here. Contact us, and we'd love for you guys to book us and come, and we will definitely be there. And we would love to bring this experience, and we would love to sit down and have conversations with you, and we would love to perform for you guys so much. And so thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, here we go again. Jazz Blues in the Church.
Yes.
And any last minute thoughts from either of you?
Well, listen, this has been a great experience. I am just excited to hear what has happened. Even from our perspective, you've had just captured us into this story, into the background, right? And we're just excited. We've seen John Stoddard do similar, and we are excited that we have met you now to collaborate this, and we see so much happening in the future. And so listen, keep it going, keep sharing that experience. We'll get that story out there for everybody to hear.
Thank you so much.
But it is bringing people closer to God in different ways. And that's the goal at the end of the day. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your organization, and may God bless you to win others to the kingdom through what you're doing.
Wow, I appreciate that so much. My closing remarks is to thank both of you guys. This conversation with you guys has been it's been a up for me. It's been a beautiful cup of coffee, a beautiful cup of spiritual coffee with my brothers. I'm more encouraged after this conversation. Thank you for allowing me to share this vision of Jazz in the Sanctuary. You know, it's relatively groundbreaking. A lot of people still are not as open-minded to think that we can have culture and that we can have jazz and blues and that we can bridge culture in a sanctuary. And we're doing it, and we're doing it well. And to be able to speak with you guys, and for you guys to be so receptive to the idea and say, hey, we want this experience in our city and in our organizations and our churches. It's so welcoming. So we don't have to hide the inspiration, the brainchilds that God gives us, even when we're unsure, even if it includes using a song by Sly and the Family Stone, you know. And so it puts me at ease, and it lets me know that I'm on the right track. And to have two brothers across the country who are supporting our efforts and our mission to bring spirit and to bring people closer to God and the God within themselves, and to share thought and to grow and to build stronger communities, I'm happy. I am happy today. So, and I appreciate you. And so now, not only do I have my brother Carl here, but I also have Pastor Wesley. So thank you guys so much.
It's our pleasure. To borrow again from Sly. Thank you for being yourself.
I was thinking that the whole way through.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
I love that.
Yes.
I think that's perfect.
We better leave it right here because we'll have another 45 minutes going in. We can just do 45 minutes on Slide. So thank you once again, and we look forward to hearing how this next event goes. Maybe you can come back and share something with us about how it went and where you plan to go, and maybe by that time we can have a booking for you.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
We'll have a reel for you. We're going to have someone to produce a reel and take some images and some clips and different to kind of give you a visual and a sonic of that. So we'll definitely get that over to you the moment that it's completed. So I'll get that over to both of you guys.
Awesome.
Love it. Love
All
it.
right.
Blessings. Well, everyone, look for the next edition of both Elevation in the Message Magazine as well as Your Liberation Library on the Message Magazine website, messagemagazine.com, where you can tune in for more conversations like this with community partners like Dr. Robert Nelson and many, many more. Thank you for tuning in. Blessings.